Obviously, Lisa, you and Beth are the only ones that have had an exciting time since we met last.
Beth, what did you do?
I got married.
Oh, yeah.
Did you get married in 14 states, though?
That would have been awesome.
Yeah.
Actually, I did get my dad certified as a officiant in Utah County.
Cool.
Ready.
All right.
Okay, well, it's 12:30, channel 17. If you're ready, please start recording. That's a good question. I could reach out to them and ask.
I just am always curious the hoops that we jump through to make sure.
When you
everything's
get
in
on
process.
YouTube, I think it says how many views. Now, I don't know.
It does, yeah, it is right.
But, and you really need to get on there. Last meeting, it was quite fun listening to us with Clancy, and the door was locked, and there's a lot that's not gonna come through quite the same, but, it's all good.
Provo Channel 17 YouTube broadcast of the June 15th, 2023 TMAC meeting has 17 views.
Was that Judy getting 17 tries at it?
Probably. I always think I'm gonna get to it, and then the next day I think again, and then,
Hey, James or channel 17, can one of you confirm you guys can hear us?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Channel 17, are we good to start?
we're good.
We're good. Okay. Thank you.
All right, welcome everybody. TMAC, July 2023. Joy is not here. She's asked that I kind of conduct in her absence. So I'll start with introductions around the table for the record. I'm Jeff McLaughlin, a TMAC member.
David Day with Public Works.
Golden Golding Development Services.
David Hurtado with TMAC.
Lisa Jensen.
Beth Provo Good.
Sean Kiesler, Provo Public Works.
Judy Johnson, Provo Public Works Engineering.
Kehan Schuler, Provo Public Works Engineering.
All right, so the second item, approving the minutes from June. Could you bring up the minutes?
Yes.
I didn't know the correct format for doing this, but I just wanted to make one correction. Scroll down to the discussion of the bike master plan. There is a bullet on here that says about preparing the letter. Probably up higher. The one that has lots of bullets.
Oh, is it this one?
Yeah.
Oh, I saw it under.
Yeah, look for the name Mr. McLaughlin on page 2 there. It was, okay, there it is. It was suggested that Ms. McMurray do a first draft of the letter then. So on this minute, I think my recollection is correct. I'm the one who's supposed to be doing the first draft of the letter, and then Joy and Lisa were going to be the ones to review.
Great.
So I just wanted,
That will be corrected.
I just wanted to clarify that. Because, you know, we talk about it, and I want to be the one that gets all the blame.
Yeah, thank you.
Well, also, I haven't heard anything, so I wouldn't know if it's gone through.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the next number.
Okay.
That would be excellent. So maybe we could vote on approving them as they will be corrected?
I don't know. I don't know. Does anybody have?
we can do that.
We could, yeah.
With the recommended changes.
Yeah.
All right, well then I ask for someone to move that we vote on that for, and I'll just make the motion. I can make the motion. I move that we do approve the minutes as corrected, as with that in mind. All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, that's unanimous. Okay, so let's move ahead then to Number 3, the update to the letter on the mayor and city council regarding sections in the bike master plan to be integrated into the transportation master plan. That's on me. So I'll switch over to Chrome. Have, Chrome?
It's actually the browser, is it?
There it is. There's a different Chrome. All right, so all right, as I drafted something, it still has P right here. I tried to mask it when I asked AI to help make the letter better, and it made it worse.
There, we can have a party.
Welcome to Gordon Haight. I'll introduce him, Provo Public Works, city engineer.
Resident eye candy. That's what I came for, just trying to improve the ratings of this podcast.
All 17 people.
Who don't know is that Gordon draws in 15 of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just,
All right. So I did get this out last week, but I think I did it in a bad way. I tried sharing it directly to Joy and using the notify box to tell her that it had been done, and then I dropped the ball about following up on whether she had seen it. So I believe that nobody else has seen this. So I just wanted to put it up here as a small discussion to run through it, and then we may need to just continue it to next month, depending on what we decide. But anything in these double braces is something I know clearly needs to.
In your second sentence from the last.
Yeah. AI is probably smart enough to figure out it's Provo anyway.
Jeff, it probably should be addressed to the Provo City Mayor and City Council.
Mayor and council? Always have a problem with this much lag?
Yes.
Ah.
battery health, like honorable.
You don't probably have to do publicity, but
Yeah, you
you're
can.
trying to.
Gotta try.
The Provo City Mayor and Council.
All right. Anyway, the very brief overview is, I looked into it some more. The old transportation master plan had the bike plan as an appendix. The new one has it just as that reference, but it was obvious that it was drawn on heavily for chapter 5. So that's basically the gist I'm getting across as context. Then the second paragraph is just saying that, chapter 7 has a lot of good information, and then we did one thing out of the 4, high priority. And then the question that I was going to bring before TMAC was, so what? What's the ask of the city council? We had talked last time about it being informational, to just say, here's this information, what do you want to do with it? But I didn't know if there was a better way to say, here's this information, what you might do with it.
Maybe change, after your blue squiggly line has, maybe change that to say obviously. Because you're saying that's the only one we can see. So I don't know if that's the right word, but what you're trying to say is that's the only item in that chapter so far that's obvious has been addressed, right?
Evidently.
Evidently, or clearly, or just something that
Evidently
says
works
it's
well for me, or obviously implies.
a little snotty.
Duh. Anyone have trouble reading it?
I don't know what the word XCAP means in the second line.
Oh, the one that was in force at the time, the one that was,
Okay.
then existed?
So you might not want to use a big word if.
Where's that at?
Second line down, added to the extent.
And
The existing,
Yeah,
Mhm.
you could just say there's
Enforce.
the existing. You could get rid of the. I would say the existing.
Is there any way to post the, I'm sorry, is there any way to post this so that the Zoom observers can see the letter?
You do a new share,
Oh, I haven't been screen sharing it?
do a new share,
No, it's screen sharing.
do a new share, and then.
Oh, you're just sharing, oh, he's sharing the minutes. I see.
So now,
Click
find
on the letter, share it.
I'll just screen share the whole screen. Does that work for you?
Yep, thank you.
I'm sorry to have left you out so long.
Down where it says cyclists, I know it's a technicality, but cyclists are different from bicyclists.
Yeah.
So if you could put bicyclists, that would be great. Cyclists are those that race bicycles, or motorcycles that race motorcycles.
You don't define what TMAC stands for, and though these people should know, maybe you want, first time you use it in that second paragraph, maybe you want to spell it out first.
So where you have the cyclist too, one of the new terms that come up a lot is micromobility, where we talk about scooters and other things.
That's been addressed.
So I'm just curious, as you update this, do we want to include those kind of people or users? Or not have them as counted as, or is this just strictly for?
I'm
This is
mostly-
for the bicycle master plan and
Oh,
what it
yes,
was.
we do, but this doesn't
Okay.
correlate to
Yeah.
that.
We'll be doing that when,
Another thing, okay. I guess I'm looking down there where you have take counts, annual counts of bicyclists. If people are heavily using scooters through the same, so I'm just curious. You guys decide. I'm just saying to you, we are seeing a transition from just pure bicyclists to a whole different group of people that are going to take advantage of what we call bike lanes or bike paths. And so this doesn't have to recognize those, like you said, but I'm just telling you that's a new and up and coming thing, I think.
well, aren't we going over the transportation? We're starting to review next year for 2025.
This is my idea, my thought about this letter is that it's get them aware that this is coming up and we should maybe look at active transportation programs a little more closely rather than just infrastructure.
Well, and to me, I don't think the line that says the city currently relies exclusively on the volunteerism bike walk Provo, I don't think they rely exclusively on that. Heavily might be better, but it's not exclusively on that.
Primarily, that's good too.
Okay, well, it is
Heavily
primarily.
or primarily?
Yeah, that's a good point, because, the city is involved in other, such as Bike Walk Provo and other things that we attend through Utah, UDOT, things like that we attend and embrace those programs that they have. Not to mention the grants that we obtain or participate in. So say, it may be primarily, but
So what you're trying to do there is just have bike walk as part of the committee to do the transportation plan? Is that what that,
No, what I'm saying, what I'm putting in this sentence is,
I'm looking at the next one, I guess.
we didn't implement these three things that came out of the bicycle master plan that were rated high priority in chapter
Right.
7. But there is, like Bike Walk Provo does get out and try to do an annual bicyclist count. They do it like on their own, or, and they do have a Bike Walk Provo website where they will have resources and maps and things for people. And they do have an administrative staff that kind of governs their activities.
I'm trying to play devil's advocate on this. I'm assuming, I'm making an assumption, the city is not integrating bike walk
No,
under its umbrella.
no plans for that, no.
Okay, so for me, bringing Bike Walk Provo into this at all doesn't make sense. Because we want the city to focus on, which I know what you're saying is these functions are being, taken care of by Bike Walk Provo right now, but it almost seems like, well, if they're taking care of it, why don't you include them into it?
Or we don't need to worry about it if it's.
I agree, that last sentence probably doesn't.
And so, because I felt like the point of this was to just get it in their minds that this is something we have done before. Do we want these priorities as a high priority in the new master plans coming in? Or are we gonna continue relying on this?
And so the next question is, what's the ask of the council?
Yeah,
I would just go straight from the other priority programs include, we as a committee still feel, the TMAC members still feel that these recommendations are valuable and would like the council to consider how, consider allotting funding to meet these goals even before the updated version of the transportation plan is looked at next year or something. Like, I think that's what our ask was, if I remember right, was
Yeah.
we're asking them prior to new rewriting of this, don't wait till next year to address this. Think about it now so that we already get the ball rolling on these programs that we decided 9 years ago were important.
and maybe just kind of a preview of future, because to me, this would be a good base for when we look at the master plan and say, okay, it's not just 3 levels of transportation, now we don't just have walking, bicycling, and cars. We now have walking, bicycling, what do you call, micro transportation?
Micromobility,
Micro
yeah.
transportation and cars. So this
Chapter
would
5.
be it could
have that.
potentially be a foundation to getting those 2.
And that might be a nice thing to put in here as a second sentence, say, as you consider funding for these bicycle-specific goals, you may want to consider the other micromobility methods in your plans for the future or something. Yeah, just so that that gets in there without changing the language of the ordinance.
Yeah, because micromobility had not really,
Taking off till 2021.
that was really,
Then it was,
wasn't something
It
that.
started a little bit in
came
2019 and
out,
then
right
it got
before
crushed.
COVID.
it's kind of on a side section of the 2020 master plan where it's
Oh,
like,
but
oh, look at these things that are coming, self-driving cars and micromobility. And it's like, well, micromobility arrived, where are those self-driving cars?
So self-driving cars is here, unfortunately.
If you look at the state's legislative code, it's really interesting how they've been making changes to definitions. So like definition for motorcycle, for instance, will now say it'll have things like for a human-driven vehicle with 2 wheels and an engine of this such.
Yeah.
They're getting into defining because they know there's gonna be non-human operators. But it's pretty interesting. They're getting ahead of it, but yeah. When we're all driven around by robots.
Well, and on the human aspect, I'm like, I cringe at the AI part, because I'm like, oh, people are gonna get killed. Anyway, on the human side of it,
40,000 by humans already.
yeah. On the micro mobility, you have like which is a discussion we're having later, but the hoverboards and all of the electric scooters.
The one wheels, what
The
are,
one
are they in the bike lane, are they on the sidewalk, are they?
And then you have these 12-year-olds on these one wheels, and it's like,
So fun.
maybe fun. So, yeah, those are what I would connect.
So Dave, you had a comment last time about linking the funding to it. So is just saying we want you to consider putting funding towards this adequate, or do we actually want to have somebody do the numbers and say, we believe this should cost, blah, 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 in order to address it fully.
I think my point was mostly that, with half the money that we get, half the money that we actually need to improve stuff and maintenance, we use that same money to implement these changes to include more forms of transportation. So I guess my plea would be, give us more funding and you'll get more stuff. But right now,
Would we say a way to look at it, like if we were to put that in words, would we say, we would recommend increasing the street maintenance budget so that these improvements can be made more quickly or something like that?
yeah, something,
Point them in a direction?
yeah, because right now, I don't know, I'm guessing, and Gordon probably knows better, but I'm guessing that we get about half of the money that we need to maintain our roads at a livable service, because so much money has been diverted to other things. And I think they really need to look at that seriously and go, is that worth the balloon payment at the end of that, like Salt Lake City is doing now with, I think they did a $50 million bond to try to get their roads back to where they need to be, because good roads cost less than bad roads. So over the years, we try to put maintenance treatments to make our roads survive longer, because once you have to dig that road up and replace it, you're 20 times the cost of the maintenance functions. So if we let those roads deteriorate to the point where we have to rebuild them, then that's a huge balloon payment, because we haven't been putting enough money in to maintain them over the long run.
If you feel like that you're not getting enough money for road maintenance, do you think that's because of the bonds that was, the fee that we're paying for
Yeah, we have the
But they
utility
assume it's just being covered somehow?
transportation fee
That's on our
that,
utility bill?
that is regulated that it has to go to maintenance. All the other money that we get can go anywhere, and that's what's happening.
So either increase the fee or a lot more.
Yeah,
budget
so,
that's gonna be robbed.
you know, just comparison, a lot of the cities around are like at $6 and we're at $3.
For transportation utilities?
Yeah, per home. And I think when we did our analysis, we were at 6, and the mayor at the time was John Curtis, and he said, hey, let's try half and see if we can do it. And what we're finding out is, no, we can't do it.
But now raising it is
But,
gonna make people
but,
mad.
but now we're gonna have to go back through all that public information process and have a mayor and administration and council behind it, that's the right thing to do. But I think to get the ball rolling, a committee like that maybe understands it a little better could push something like that forward.
So do we want to say in this letter, forms of funding could be an increase to the street maintenance budget, or raising the utility street fee? I mean, they don't want to do that, but we're just trying to show them, look.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say something, I was like, considering the diversity of transportation moving forward, and additional funding into the maintenance of our roads and the future of transportation.
Do we make that its own item and possibly its own recommendation to take it out of the?
That's what I was going to suggest, is that road maintenance is complicated. And Dave's right, we're significantly underfunded, and there is going to be a time that people will be really sad. I'm thinking I'll be gone, but it'll be fine. So we're good. Kahan won't.
Or we can fix it before then.
No, either way, I'm not
We
saying.
cannot run away from the problem.
No, no. And I think it's a challenging issue. And so I would suggest that this group ought to take seriously funding for maintenance, because when you have something, you should take care of it. And people judge your community on how you take care of your roads and your sidewalks and your trails. I mean, it says a lot about what's really critical and important to you. So I think it's a big issue. The funding is really, really huge. And so I think this group ought to say something about it, but I think that's a separate thing.
Even though it helps to point them in the right direction.
Yeah,
for
I think we use maintenance budget items for a program like a bicyclist count. It just feels like it's pulling out of the wrong pot.
No, so.
That would not be maintenance fund.
Yeah, so here's what I'm looking at from your thing. I think what I'm hearing from you is you read the old Bike Master. You found 4 things that you felt were pretty important to do. We did one of those things, and that one thing was doing school safe routes. So safe routes. The other 3 things that came off of that you felt were important was to hire a person, do a website, and do a count, or do regular counts. Those are the 3. I'm just summarizing.
Yeah, they're listed as high priority by the 2-year.
And so, go ahead.
Some may interpret that as the position that they created here that I accepted. That's traffic manager of all transportation. So I'm just saying that.
That's the flimsiest one to me. That's the one I feel like they would have the least amount of will to do. It's also the most expensive by far.
So it is, and then I followed up on the counts that you guys talked about, and Parks and Recreation does do counts on their trails. MAG used to have a couple of counters. They've since expired, meaning that they've broken or stolen or whatever, busted up. So they actually don't have any counters in Provo, but they have it elsewhere in the county. So it is a little bit left up to interpretation of how the administration council wants to interpret that, of those 3 items.
So the question would be, I think counts is helpful. I think that'd be great. And so I don't necessarily have problems suggesting we do that. Vern over there, just last week, he bought 4 new cameras. So we have 2 that go on trailers that we don't want to put on the streets anymore very often. And so those could do maybe trail counts or pathway counts or bike counts at key locations. So I think, but right now we don't count very many. We do it when we have to in an isolated place because we're doing a traffic study or we're doing a project. We'll go in and look at that. But so counts will help your argument of why you need active transportation elements, and that's kind of important. And I think it's good to gauge that over time because of the micromobility. Right now, we're talking a lot of flimsy words. Nobody knows really what's out there. We're not counting it well. We're not keeping track of it well. So I don't see any problem with that. I think that's good. The website, I don't know if it's better to have it part of the city website and have have a banner that takes you to that, or if we create its own website. Because I don't know if the public's going to get there.
I think it would have to be under Parks and Rec.
But there's 2 elements. So the park people are trails, and then I think you'd want to do micromobility and that have the park trails and the street pathways, because I think you want, Parks is pretty independent with their trails. We're kind of independent with our pathways, but people that are riding a bike are going to want to know both pathways and.
But see, in my mind, I see this as, doesn't really matter that it's 2 different departments that are merging together. I see this as we need to have a map somewhere on the city website that has those park trails and has those streetways shown. And that somebody, and if the only link to it is a QR code saying, welcome to Provo, ride your bike here, so it's more of the wayfinding. If it comes through the wayfinding efforts, that's great.
So I really like what you said. I think what we're saying is, let's not create a new website. Let's use the website we have and get to it. So when I was reading this, I was thinking of a specific website for the bike, but what I'm seeing now maybe is make sure we have a specific page on our website that you could use a QR code and get right to a map, right to events, right to stuff.
What if we said a city bicycling website or link, just so that somebody has the ability to interpret it that way in their head, even though that's not the exact wording from the.
But something like within the city website. Make sure because I want to make sure we know we're not creating a new website. But
I'm also trying to honor whatever wording you pulled it from that was in the bike master plan. Did it actually say have a bike website? Because if so, then we need to.
But I'm
that,
also.
Or here's an idea.
I think we honor, but I also think you have the right to modify it. So if you see something from that plan that's like, you'd like to tweak it a little bit, then you can tweak it. If you want to have its own website, it can have its own website. So
I don't think you should have it.
Yeah, I don't either. Or I guess I'm saying the wording, I just want to make sure the council knows that we're thinking of keeping it on the city website.
Bike program website.
This is the bicycle master plan explanation of it.
Oh, perfect.
There you go.
I love it.
So, so now you could say.
But it's this sort of stuff here too, like.
A website hosted on the city website.
Yeah, but that can all be within one
Yeah.
page.
Yeah, if it's all one page on the site, something that's easy to, I guess.
That would be the number one priority.
My thought about this letter, and the reason I suggested this letter, or somebody suggested this, I started the discussion a while ago, was to say, you know, if we want to encourage active transportation and we want to walk that walk, we actually have to take steps. You know, walking requires taking steps. And we're doing that on the surface with the striped lanes and the second east overhaul and all that kind of stuff. But we could do more programmatic.
No, I like your recommendation. So I'm agreeing to, I just want to make sure I understood. And once you told me it was on the city website, I'm totally happy. And let's give it all the things you want in there. Number one, the map, but everything else, so it's easy to get to. I just didn't want a standalone website. That's, when I see website, I'm seeing standalone. Nobody here at Public Works.
So it's kind of, hoping this is kind of a low lift type of thing.
I think I'm fully supportive. I love
And then every May, when they do the big bike to work thing, it'll be plastered all over this website.
That would be awesome. Do we want to take this I struggle between keeping the letter as concise as possible so that it gets read and it gets attention versus adding a list of, here's these 4 goals or these 3 that haven't been met, and here's some suggestions from TMAC about ways you could meet those as efficiently as possible. And then we say a map with you know, do we explain it in words in the letter, or do we explain it in a PDF at the bottom, or in a separate memo, or talk to us and we'll tell you what our ideas are, or?
Psychology would say offering a solution along with a suggestion gets more results.
But it requires them to read to the end.
So maybe have a short letter and then put on the back
TMAC
website
recommendations.
this, and then maybe you could have that, so they read the letter, it catches your interest, and then you've got bullet points, and you don't have to do it in letter form necessarily, but you could just have, these are the things we'd see on the website, this is what we would see with the.
Suggestions for, or items that need, specific items that need immediate funding.
But I do like the idea of giving them the points, so that they're not saying, we got a website, what do you mean? What
Or
do you
that they
want?
would have to go open to page 134
We don't want
of
to
the
do that.
bicycle plan. If we can pull those out, what we just looked at that clarified everything for us, and they have it right there on the second page of their
With
letter.
bullets.
Yeah, I think that's what we want to do.
'Cause I
And
think
I'm happy
every-
to go through that with you and figure out what we
I
want
think
to do.
everybody sees those bullets and says, yeah, we want. And then on the counts, I think that would help us meet the needs of what's happening. So in other words, we're not counting for the fun of counting, but we're counting so that we can meet the needs of
The users.
the users, because we don't know who they are. The micromobility we have to count, I believe. I don't see them separate from the bike people myself. I'm not trying to make you all the same, but if you're,
They're using the same.
if they're in a scooter,
That's the thing, they're using the same.
and so I'm thinking scooters and the little skateboard thing.
Oh, yeah,
I'm counting them as bike people.
Our technology will count them as the same.
Yeah, so so if we have a skateboard person combined a bike person, it should count as two people use that path. That's what I believe.
yeah, so.
Is it based on speed? And that's how it differentiates runners and
It'll
walkers?
identify an object that just went by.
It won't know if it's a bike.
It won't know.
It's just, the computer's just gonna see something went by,
But
count it.
does it know it's not a walker or a runner?
Yeah, it does. So I think
It
it's
has to
5
be a
miles,
speed
it has to be over 5, something like that.
It
And
has
there's
a
a,
speed cutoff.
Yeah, the speed.
We might count a few walkers
If you
as
see the
bikes.
camera, they start sprinting.
if somebody's sprinting, yeah.
Yeah.
We used to do that on
Hey,
Lake Canyon Drive when it told you what speed you were going, to see if we could get on the
But again,
speedometer.
I think it's valuable to know,
I don't love it.
this committee is about all forms of transportation, including walking. So if we're looking at pathways and sidewalks and where everybody's going, those trails along the river and every place are walkers, are bikers, are micromobility. So there's a level of trying to find out everything about everybody. We're Big Brother.
We're, for this letter though, I think the micro-mobility, we're gonna have to conquer next year.
Well, I like what we've said is, like, if we can put the bullet points there and maybe parenthetically say micro mobility is going to be a big deal with this, you know, like, point where.
I think the council like that, they're wrestling with it too. They just changed the ordinance and they're trying to figure out how to deal with it. Nobody really knows yet. So
I think
the
it would
fact
be
that you're
helpful.
aware of it,
It'll be helpful for them too to see that this has been a bullet item under previous council members and mayors, and that it's done, forgotten. They don't have to reinvent the wheel, it's already there.
I'd also
And
like
it's a
to
one-
give the council some low-hanging fruit that they can get a win on active transportation.
like
Honestly,
that.
the website is really, might take hours, it might take man hours, but it's not,
Lower maintenance after the fact.
yeah, you're not
And-
having to reinvent a road. You
Yeah.
just have to have an IT person on those.
And the fact that there's a huge wayfinding effort right now going on, it's good timing to get a QR code that can go on those wayfinding signs that links them to this information that you want people getting off the train to have, or people at the convention center to have.
One other thing is, it really hits one of those 3 E's in the transportation master plan, the education. That could be the main education outreach. That website, just an easy resource to always point people to. With respect to the counts, I hadn't really thought about technological counts so much as a bunch of Lisa Jensen's from 20 years ago with their clipboard. You know,
the city's not gonna do that. We're going to put out,
cameras. Well, I just didn't know if it could be a city-sponsored
if the city does it,
volunteer.
no, if the city's doing this, we're gonna do it a technical way.
Okay.
So if you're putting up, the city's doing it. If you wanna have bike walk, we're totally happy to have.
To have them do it that way.
So, and we'll accept both, but we're probably gonna do it our way.
Okay.
Not
We'll
done.
take it. I'll pull my clipboard away.
I'm not, listen, that wasn't a diss, it was just,
I only got paid $1.25 an hour, so it's totally fine if I don't do it again.
I'm not here to badmouth anything, but we're gonna do it a certain way.
Okay. And then, think, based on this and all of the bullet points, how much time are Dave and Vern looking for this meeting? You are on,
What now?
for your bullet points, there's,
Oh, mine, don't worry about mine, mine's 2 minutes and
okay,
quick update, you're fine, take as much time as you need.
okay. So, I'm gonna ask,
About this this morning?
I'll ask everyone here, is there more we should discuss right now in this meeting, or should we continue it, take it offline? And
I would really like this to move forward faster than a month from now. So I'm wondering if we could, agree that we like this as described and maybe send out a copy to all committee members and just have everyone give it a thumbs up or down, and then send it out so that we can do it before the next meeting. That would be my suggestion.
I'm okay with that as long as we get to review it and possibly our 2 cents. And I know we're putting our 2 cents in right now, but
Have the final version of
Yeah.
2 cents.
Yeah.
yeah.
I think you'll be fortunate enough, Lisa, have a consensus for the next meeting and then send out. I am pretty lofty to get it out before the next meeting with somebody.
But either way,
So many
if
folks.
we wait till the next meeting, then it will be the next meeting before it gets sent out. So if we can do
Well, I mean,
some of
we
the
work,
corresponding
we
about it.
finish it in the interim and take the official vote in
Yeah.
August.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I think that's
Yeah.
what you're gonna.
It was our intent to do that this time around. I communicated poorly.
Yeah, I kind of thought this was gonna be a couple meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Also, I have questions then for knowledgeable folks, whoever wants to take that mantle, about what communications among TMAC members, since there will be more than 3 people getting these emails, how does that go into
So
public
what we
record?
need to do is, you guys don't communicate, let us send the letter to you and you communicate with us. So, in other words, this is a gray area, but you guys are such as you are. We'll send you out an email, give your comments back to us. So you'll get an email from the city. So you work on the letter, send it to us, and let us send it out. And you guys aren't communicating, you're communicating with us.
So all replies will have the you in the 2 lines, so it'll be on record that way.
Yeah, so you're not meeting, you're not discussing, you're giving it to us, and we're getting input.
Okay.
Everything's discoverable with Grandma through us.
Yes.
And so just send it to Kahan. Kahan can send it out to the entire committee. So if you get a comment, you can send it out.
So how often would that be updated? I mean, so somebody sends in stuff tomorrow, and then 2 days from there, somebody else, and then 3 days, and then a week.
Can't we just copy it to everyone so everyone sees it as a?
And everybody gets their
So
stuff.
what I'd like to do is you draft up a final something, send it to Kahan, then Kahan's gonna send it to all of you. So that could happen really quickly, and we'd like you to respond within 3 days. 4 days, we'll give you 5 days.
I'll reply all with.
No later than July 24th.
Yeah. I want you out there shooting fireworks right in your comments. No, we'll give you some reasonable time, and then I suspect Kahan and Vern are gonna sit down, mush it together, and then they'll send out a final version to be looking at. You don't need a comment unless you see something egregious, and if you're feeling, yeah, this looks pretty good, then you're gonna vote next month. That sounds.
Am I right that we want to reply all, so that if I say you should do this, then we don't
You
have
could.
3 other people saying you should
That's
do
where the
this?
gray area, you're not kind of supposed to do that, but if you
Okay,
do, I don't
okay.
care.
So don't reply all.
Just send it to us, and we'll send you out a final version.
I'll keep track of everything.
And if you guys say,
That way, yeah.
they didn't use my exact wording, maybe we use somebody else's who we like more. So I'm just,
I think if we could go through a couple
No.
iterations of everybody getting their stuff in, and then we send out what has been edited, then everybody can look at that and decide if they want more.
yeah, we'll send a couple variations to make sure everybody gets their 2 cents in.
Yeah, I mean,
I think that's a good plan.
don't imagine this is the only time we'll want to do something like this.
Mhm.
So,
Let us do it like that, 'cause we only meet every month, so I think Kahan sends it out, you guys should be good.
So to the second point, should we draft another letter that, leads with the council and mayor to, pay attention to?
Yes, yes, but I'd like to,
Because we
guess
want that
what,
to
he
go
has
out
a
before
video
September,
you
right?
haven't seen yet.
oh, a video.
Yeah, we have
What about
another-
September was that?
So what we'd like to do is, if we're gonna talk about road maintenance, for us, it's not a big deal till July, because that's when the next funding cycle is, but let us come and do a presentation, you guys see how the funding is, so you can give an articulate justification for what you think you need.
So we don't need to rush and get that, I thought the budget was approved in October.
It just got approved in July.
Yeah, so it's, the fiscal year starts in July, but Dave Decker usually takes his presentation
So,
February, January.
so he's right. So right around January, we start the budget process. So it might be good to have your letter hit around the first of the year.
We want to add
So
that as an
November,
agenda
December
item.
meetings, we should probably.
Yeah,
do
let's
that.
not, let's put it
Yeah,
as a separate
a little-
agenda item for next month.
A
Let's
little
do that.
spacing in between these 2 letters would be beneficial, I think.
And they don't want, like, letter after letter after.
And if it's
What if
been,
they're one of the 17 watching this meeting, we just told them what we're doing?
Plus,
That's
true.
That's fine.
One council, not everyone. watching the meeting.
For the public record. But it also, the other thing that allows for dropping at the beginning of the year is the third week of January, we get new council members, is that right? Or the second week? When do they get sworn in?
No, they start January first.
Yeah, but we'll know in November who they
Oh,
are.
November, you'll know who all the new council people are, but I think it's the first, they have to be sworn in by the first week of January or something.
Yeah, so it could hit them when they have new people.
So let's not write that letter till after January, so the new council people have.
And I know we did this about, I don't know, 5-6 months ago, but if needed, if it's gonna help at all with your letter, I could have our road maintenance, road rehab engineer, be here, present kind of his side of how things work on his end, if that helps you with your.
He did a presentation to the city council on that, so
He
we could,
did, okay.
so we could just read.
Didn't we got a presentation on maintenance in February or something like that?
Yeah, it was like, yep,
Yeah.
5-6 months ago, you're right, yep.
All right, so
Okay, no motion required.
no motion required for that because we'll vote next month. And that will be an item for next month to vote on the move to send out the letter. Okay, so we will close that down. Remember to share appropriately. Okay, yeah, I'm just sharing the screen so we can come back to our agenda. And move to the next item. Thank you, everyone, for helping make it better. We'll turn the time to Vern for an update on the active transportation networks, connections to the trail network.
Great, we'll go ahead and pull up a map. As you recall, we've kind of done a 4-step process in layering our active transportation, including trails here. So we wanted to see how many projects had actually been implemented of the 50 projects from the Transportation Master Plan on active transportation. We showed that first, and we also showed the ones not started. Then we showed the existing and combined that. So then when you add the trails in here, here's the entire network, right? And so if we remove the red lines, that's your network. So wanted to kind of communicate that we have a lot of facilities and we're planning for growth and other facilities as well. So what's great about this is you can kind of see spatially where we anticipate our growth to occur. That's southwest and mostly northwest Provo. So that's where new roads have yet to be built, where new bike lanes have yet to be put on roads because they're not there yet. And so there's some connections that we want to make as well, realizing that some of the roads have UDOT ownership, and so those are on their timetable.
We have a lot of interconnected ways.
The good news is, a little bit of good news, and this is an announcement. UDOT did receive the RAISE grant of $25 million, I think it was $27 million statewide to do some active transportation projects. Provo is on that list for 2 projects. So we'll see some type of project. The scope's going to change just a little bit, but we'll see some type of bicycle intersection safety projects on University Avenue from Center Street up to about 800 North, I think. And then we're going to also do some type of enhancement on 2nd East from Center Street down to 6th Ave. So those are the 2 areas where we'll receive funding. So that's all positive.
How you did?
All right, is that all?
That's probably the only updates that we need to show. Hopefully, next month we'll have some before and after of a safety project that we implemented. We need to collect some video from that yet. Most of it's implemented, but it's not 100%.
We'll turn time over now to Dave Hurtado to talk about illegal vehicles on public streets and trails.
So you guys will probably know I own a store called the Scooter Lounge for the last 21 years. It's problematic because there's two words in my business name that people don't understand. One is lounge. So I get people sending me, trying to sell me bar supplies, entertainment at my store. And then the word scooter is really confusing because there's basically a wheeled conveyance called a scooter for every stage of human life. And we only focus on really one of them. But because that's my business, it is important to me to pay attention to what the laws are and what types of vehicles are being used, and if they're being used properly and so forth. And lately, we've talked about in this meeting a few times about micromobility. There's a lot of different vehicles that are on the roads, and I don't know if they're legal. Some of them, I think the law is actually behind the definition, so there's some gray areas, but there's other things that definitely aren't in a gray area that are still being used illegally. And my concern with that is safety. So I don't know if it's really even in my lane as a TMAC member to bring this subject up, but I thought I would ask and just kind of talk about it, maybe ask some questions. So I was flying back from North Carolina a few days ago, and because I was in Florida at the airport, I got a news recommendation on my phone for a news article that said that the governor of Florida had just passed a new law because we're regulating golf carts. Because a 3-year-old child was driving a golf cart, not just accidentally. He was driving it and came around a corner and ran over and killed a 7-year-old. And so they had to make it clear in the law that these vehicles are not to be operated by anyone under 18 that doesn't have a driver's license. I don't want to be behind the curve on those kind of things in our city and see horrible things like that happen. So, but I live right across the street from Timpview High School. So during school, when kids are going home, I see kids riding home in golf carts like this, sometimes several of them.
I've seen that golf cart on Edgemont
Yeah,
Street.
none of them look old enough to drive a car or play golf. And I see someone drive home on one of these. This is gas powered. I had one when I was a kid. It was awesome.
But they're calling it a bike.
You pull the cord and it starts the engine. They're like 212 cc's, and you can get these at like Sportsman's Warehouse. And they'll ride these in the bike lane.
What is it really? Is it a scooter?
What would you label that?
It would be, to my understanding of the law, because this is gas powered, this would be a off-road dirt motorcycle. So not street legal. It doesn't have turn signals or a tail light. I'm sure it doesn't have a VIN number. Doesn't
No
have
license
any.
on it.
Yeah, and if it were street legal, they would have to have a motorcycle license to operate it, and they don't. So we see these. This one, this looks like the little scooters you can rent around town, right? Except this thing goes 55 miles per hour, two-wheel drive. We had a customer that would drive this with his girlfriend standing in front of him, and he would ride it up to the Y, and he would ride it on the public streets. I asked him if he ever got pulled over. He said he got a ticket for speeding once. But this is definitely not a street legal vehicle, but people are operating these on the streets.
On that vein, the ones that they have around town that are rentals, actually say on them, do not ride on the sidewalk.
Yeah.
So it's pushing them into the street, which probably isn't legal, but it's keeping them off the sidewalks, and so that's what's contributing to more of them on the street.
And as far as the state law, as I've read it and understood it, those scooters, if they don't go over 20 miles per hour, it might be 18, they're legally treated like a bicycle. So you can operate it anywhere you could operate a bicycle, which would be you could go in the lane of traffic if you want to take your life in your own.
Okay, so it's not illegal, but it is pushing them into traffic.
Yeah, but then this one would be illegal because it goes 55 miles per hour. So yeah, but that's this customer just told me, oh, it's in a gray area. It's not really gray, except for that.
You were speeding.
Yeah, you were speeding and you're driving it, it's not, it's got too much motor power. There's a limit to how many watts the motor can be in order to be legal.
And that's my e-bike. I can ride it on a trail as long as it's not above pedal assist 2 or whatever, because then it goes too fast.
Yeah. Now this is being sold as an e-bike. This is an electric motorcycle. They have no pedals. You can't propel it anywhere by pedaling only. These go 50 miles an hour. I see 12-year-olds doing wheelies down to the drive on these things. And at night, there's a whole gang of them that get together and ride around. And on the 4th of July, the night before the parade, these were all over the place on University Avenue. And there are a lot of them. I mean, if I was 14, I would, you know, beg, borrow, or steal to get one of these so I could ride it illegally. Don't get me wrong. But it is creating, I think, a dangerous situation. And I don't know, as a TMAC committee, if we can make any recommendations or bring this to the attention. Maybe it's already on the city council's radar. But what I would love to see is the mayor to send out a letter in their monthly letter saying, you know, we need to make it clear what's legal and what isn't, and where the legal uses of these are and where they're not. And we're going to be enforcing this now. So be aware, you know, tell your kids, hide your wives, hide your kids. And let's keep people safe. I mean, that's really the whole presentation I had. Is I don't know exactly where some of these vehicles fall in the legal spectrum of things, but I think it would be a shame to wait until a child runs over another child before something happens to make it clear.
Is that something that you think could happen right away?
What we can do, well, first of all, I think there's a state code and city code that we just need to build a law. We can have Provo Police Department come and give a presentation, as well as Parks and Recreation. Parks and Recreation has looked into this matter greatly because they're riding on the trails. They're doing 30, 40 miles an hour. They are now going to have to start looking at speed limits on trails of, 15 miles an hour. So it is a real issue. Dave, in my neighborhood, not only do I have those same golf carts, but I have the ATVs that, not the four-wheelers, but the side-by-side thing. Some are street legal, some are not. It depends what they're equipped with. And I'm seeing the same thing, 12, 14-year-old kids riding around with a group in their vehicle. And I just know someday, somewhere, there's going to be an accident. And it's going to cost someone, So I think it's important for us. I really appreciate it. Dave, it's 100% within your purview as a TMAC member to bring this up. And so I think what we need to be is in the TMAC, be educated. Let's pull in the right personnel who have done the research, give our presentations, and then you can clearly make some type of recommendation based upon what we know.
This is the start of the micromobility vehicles that we're talking about, not cars and not bicycles. You're not a pedestrian. So it's like these kids are like, oh, it's a gray area, so I'm fine doing it, but it's not a gray area.
Well, then there's the issue of none of the rentals have helmets, so you've got people going 30 miles an hour in the street.
They should have limiters.
Well, I'm just saying that
Yeah.
these people aren't wearing them most of the time either.
Yeah,
So you're right, they aren't.
even though it says wear a helmet.
And, you're not supposed to ride around town with your friends when you're 16 with a new license. We've got unlicensed drivers driving golf carts and side-by-sides that aren't licensed and aren't supposed to have people with them and aren't wearing seatbelts for all we know, and, whatever.
Well, there's no.
It used to be on the Provo River Trail, I think the majority of the serious accidents were longboarders or longboarders colliding with other people. But now you've got into the mix, you've got all of these kind of things as well. And it's kind of scary. It's you've got parents and children meandering around the path, and you've got cyclists going, human power going 30 miles an hour, and then you've got these kind of things. And it's insane, really. It's a very dangerous situation.
And what's interesting about that is that what I'm seeing is all this micromobility going faster than I am in my car. Every single time. Yeah. Even bicyclists beat me 12 blocks the other day. That's how slow or congested things were, and the bikes too. Anyway, it is an issue. And so let me do this. Let me see if I can get someone for next month We'll check their schedule. There has been some research recently done by Parks and Recreation on this topic.
So here's what I would like to know. I would also like to know about the one wheel.
Oh, yeah. I didn't-
Because they're not pictured there, but there is a possibility that they don't fall anywhere as far as where they're allowed, and we need to define that.
Segways, the 9 baht.
Oh, yeah, the Segways too.
Yeah,
We don't see as
Segways.
many of those.
No, not anymore. It's the hoverboard, is what they're calling them.
Yeah, and that's what I'm seeing is the
Oh, the hoverboards
longboards
are
or
the
skateboards that are being electronically controlled by batteries. They're a little remote.
Yeah.
So we're
They're riding in
seeing,
the streets. so
they're
they don't
riding
get
in the
hurt.
bike lanes.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I'd like to see all of those and have whoever you bring tell us, number one, where they're allowed, what's allowed. You know, like, it's okay to ride this as long as it's not a certain speed limit or whatever, and then, tell us what's not included if we need to just add it to it.
Yeah, it's gonna be an interesting question, and what happens with this, because, we had horses and horse and buggy, and then the automobile, and then we got motorcycles, how we had motorcycles and bicycles before that, right? And so it's gonna be really interesting to see how various parts of the community embrace these or shun these, because, bicyclists are usually used to having the bike lane pretty much to themselves. I don't think that's gonna be the case in the future.
Well, I know of 3 young people rent one of the scooters because it's cheaper to rent a scooter for a month and get to and from their job than it is to have a car. That you have to registration, gas, even if they have electric car, it's cheaper to
They
rent.
could buy their own scooter for $400.
Yeah.
I mean, after, yeah, my car's sitting in my driving.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, we know it's sat there for the last 14 days.
that's for sure. You're using someone else's.
So just, not too long ago, I don't remember, about maybe 7, 8 months ago, I was in a meeting with UDOT and some other city officials from other counties and cities. The same topic was brought into their attention. They are struggling with this. As you can see, there is a gray area. There's an actual gray area there that kind of makes it very difficult for them to justify saying that, okay, if you're below 20 or 18, be on sidewalk, but if you are going over 18, be on street, but then what if they're underage, maybe they're 12-year-old kids, but do we really want to push them on the street? So there's the speed, there's the age, and then there's the classification of roads. There's a lot of things that need to be kind of taught as a
Is there a
whole.
jurisdiction issue too, because the state makes some of the codes for streets,
There-
and then
there
cities
is.
can also make their own?
There is.
So that's another thing that we
So
would need
even
to
with police and
discuss.
parks and rec, I'm pretty sure they know a lot more than us. There will be some answers they just don't know yet.
As far as the law is concerned,
Yeah.
they'll know a lot more. I have to tell you, the phone call that I received last week were 32 minutes. This person ranted and raving about bikes, how they belong on the sidewalk and not on the street. And he went off. And this is the same, must have been about my age, because I learned to ride my bike against the flow of traffic on the opposite side of the street, right? And that standard went out in the 80s and hasn't been anywhere near. So it had to be someone who's my age. So very upset, very disappointed that we restriped the bike lanes up on Grandview Hill that we did. I told him I was personally responsible for that. So
Why doesn't he want bikes in the road?
because people
Downhill.
are dying. People are dying left and right, and I said, well, we can't get rid of crosswalks, even though people are getting hit and killed in the crosswalks. And so he's really, really concerned, and he won't give me a name, a number, or anything like that, get back with him, but I did tell him sidewalks, there's only 2 places in the city that I'm aware of that's riding your bike on the sidewalk is prohibited. That's downtown Center Street, and then a little bit on University Avenue. And so I have to share that with you, because not everything that I get is proactive transportation, right? That's an example of someone who's very passionate, may even go up to a city council and voice the same concern that they voiced to me prior to a city council meeting. At least we'll know who that was. But, I kind of understood in the sense that, he was concerned about the fatalities that we're getting. And it's sad. And, so speaking of education, we are doing some ads doing PSAs on Channel 17 as part of our educational outreach. And that is slow down. Right now, we're on the anti-speeding campaign. And then maybe next month we'll be back to school, and then the month after is be Rail Safety Month. And there's just different things that we're gonna be
How many
doing.
people actually get that?
I don't know. I have no idea what the viewership is.
Well, that would also show up on like an Instagram page, right? The city's Instagram would be,
We are trying to make.
because I don't watch
sure
Channel
that-
17 ever, so I would never see that.
So, I'm hoping that our social media accounts are gonna be accompanying with that as well.
You see stuff from the city.
I think I follow the city council and Parks and Rec or something, so anything that falls in those would show up in Instagram or Facebook. I wouldn't get PSAs on Channel 17.
Oh, like a publicity.
I follow the Provo
There you go.
City coordinates. Right now, they're pushing the hot card, valuable people or items in your hot card.
These invaluable people.
Yeah.
Like those national park suggestions to hike with your ex and push him in front of the bear or something like that.
But the point of bringing that up, we digress, but it's a fun thing, is if we coordinate across departments, probably do better outreach.
Yeah.
Which I know the police department is about laws and safety and everything, but a lot of this is about safety of, hey, you're not supposed to be driving this on the street, and we can pull you over, so don't.
We would do a lot of that on public works, but we don't have our own individual thing anymore. It's been combined with evidently, we must have done something wrong. Anyway, it goes through the mayor's office now and through the administration for those types of, releases.
I just think it's.
But see, I'm
Can
thinking,
you just coordinate?
if there's a public reach outward, if there's a public outreach, we could have some of the bike lanes, the highly used ones, have speed limits. As a reminder that you're not supposed to go more than whatever in a bike lane. On the trails, we could certainly post a speed limit at various points.
That's gonna be the new movement. You're gonna see speed limits on trails.
But that's important because there kind of is a speed limit on them anyway, like you were saying. They're not supposed to be, by law, those electric vehicles are not supposed to be driven on trails. Like, they're not trail worthy if you go above a certain assist. And so people who are riding 25, 35 miles an hour with their bikes or scooters are doing it illegally if they're on a public trail. But if they haven't read the manual or the law, they don't care or know.
If there's no enforcement whatsoever, there's no education. They recently, on the Murdoch Canal Trail, they just imposed a speed limit at one section in Orem because there was a fatality there where a bike collided with a pedal cyclist they're both going quite fast and under a tunnel that you couldn't see very well. So they just put a speed limit there, which some people are unhappy about, but.
There's a lot of crossings on the Murdoch Canal Trail, and there's a lot of hairpin turns too. But as
A lot
a
of ways to
cyclist, I'm
die.
like, I should probably slow down because I can't see what's ahead of me. Education.
Well, that's all I had, so.
Thank you. All right. So that was the final agenda item. To sort of recap, I'm going to send to Kahan an updated version of the letter with bullet points quickly so that it can be sent to all TMAC members. And then I guess just prepare and study up a little bit on law and vehicle classifications, preparation for presentations forthcoming. Is there anything else that we're supposed to be taking away from this?
Only by Parks and Rec or.
Is that your job? Is that what
Yeah,
you do?
that's what I'll do. I'll talk to someone. I've been in a couple of meetings already about
And then as a next month's agenda, road maintenance budget letter, so we're gonna add that as an item to the.
Starting discussing road
So
maintenance.
to educate about it. Alright, so next meeting, we'll finalize that letter and start educating about the budget.
The budget.
All right, well, if there's nothing else,
Oh, plus the illegal vehicles one, that's, you got that one?
Yeah, and I think I actually visited with Sandy too, so we may have a little bit more, we're gonna have a presentation on the data associated with micromobility as far as the electric bikes and the scooters. We started October 1st with the contract with them, so let's see how the first 6-9 months are going.
that's only gonna get the rentals though, right?
Those are the
Not
rentals.
personal vehicles.
Yeah, those are just the rentals.
But it'll give us an idea of usage.
Yeah, to give you an idea of usage, a little bit of origin and destination, and then, also income associated with that a little bit.
All right,
So we'll make sure we get to that element.
all right, with that, we will adjourn our July meeting. You,
And I will pull J-Dogs and Alfredo, Alfredo? Yeah, that other stuff out of the oven, and you're welcome, Kath.